Hey guys, this is Heather with Frequency again. Today I am putting together my grounding crystal incense. This is really a potpourri of sorts. You can also use them as clearing salts, and you can even put them in a simmer pot and add some water and kind of boil it. But really the best way I like to use them is as a potpourri, a very interesting and neat potpourri. So it has a lot of pink Himalayan sea salt, and then I'm going to start adding the other ingredients, which are lavender, cedarwood, frankincense, and of course a bunch of tree agate crystals. So while I'm doing that, I figure I would come and talk to you guys again. I was so excited last video because there were quite a few responses and replies on Instagram and Facebook and other channels that were so positive. I'm blown away. This is gonna be loud. Hang on. Here's the frankincense. I was really blown away by the amazing positive response and how much people really want to learn more about physics and crystals and a lot of the science behind it. So, and also knowing more about me. There was quite a bit of response on, hey, I'm so glad I finally get to meet you kind of thing. So I figure we'll keep going for as long as we can. All right. Frankincense, lavender, pink Himalayan sea salt. Dusty at this point. So, a couple of questions that were asked. Do I do frequency full time? The answer to that is no. I have a full-time job. I do frequency at night and on the weekends. I'm also a mom. I have a 2-year-old amazing daughter. She's absolutely brilliant and continues to, aren't those cool, impress me every day with how much she learns and grows and changes. So frequency is really a labor of love. I do it because I felt that I needed to. After my daughter was born, I was searching for something that was that I couldn't find. Something a little spiritual, a little magical. I had been really magical in my teenage years and lost my way a bit, so to speak, in my 20s. And after she was born, I really just had this calling that I needed to go back, and I couldn't find what I was looking for, so I decided to make it on my own. I've always been very crafty and handy and DIY kind of thing, so it helped me immensely and made me feel so good, and I wanted to do everything I could to help other people, and I thought that by making them things that I was making available, I might actually be able to make somebody smile. And if that was the case, then it made me feel really good about that. So that's why I started frequency. I hope that one day it gets to the point where I can do it full time. That of course would be absolutely brilliant, but for now it is not the case. So when I got out of school, I worked as an engineer for a company, and then we sold a lot of the business that we were in and were absorbed by a sister company of ours. And during that process, I actually transitioned from the engineering side of things to marketing, believe it or not. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it started as more of a product management type of role. It was an opportunity to see the science and technology that was out there in the world and really take what we were doing and create solutions, again, to help people, a lot of it in medical. So That was really exciting. So even though it is technically in the marketing department, it's really looking at, the markets and businesses and out there and what type of needs there are, and trying to direct the innovation of our company and our products to best serve those needs. So yeah, sounds kind of funny being in marketing, but life ends up that way sometimes. So what everybody really wants to know about is more about crystals. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain a lot of the fundamental concepts of how physics and physicists and mathematicians view crystals. And before I can really get into any of it, we have to understand the definition of a crystal in scientific terms. So a crystal is really an ordered array of atoms. It's a solid, where the atoms in the solid form what's called a crystal lattice. Now you can kind of imagine a crystal lattice as being like a brick wall, so to speak, where all these bricks come together in a very ordered and repeating pattern, that's very important, to form a wall. Well, atoms come together and they form a very ordered and repeating pattern to form a crystal. Now there's two types of symmetries that we really look at when we look at crystals. That's rotational symmetry and translational symmetry. The rotational symmetry means if I take, say, I'm looking for a visual. If I take, say, a square, right? And let's imagine that on this square, I have an atom at each of these points. Now you can take this and you can rotate it by 90 degrees, ignoring my sticker. We'll do it this way. You can rotate it by 90 degrees and it looks exactly the same. You still have the same atoms on each of these corners. You can rotate another 90 degrees and it also looks exactly the same. So that's what we call fourfold rotational symmetry. So you can rotate it 4 times to make a complete circle. And at each of those angles, it looks exactly the same. So there's different rotations that will give you symmetry. You can have a triangle. You can rotate it 3 times. It's threefold rotational symmetry. You can have a hexagon, things like that. So rotational symmetry is really important. And it means that, if you're viewing it from this direction or that direction, what you're going to see is the same. Now, translational symmetry. That means that if I'm looking at, say, a whole bunch of these, right? Like bricks in a wall. Imagine square bricks in a wall. You've got a whole bunch of these squares all lined up nice and ordered, right? Translational symmetry means that this brick here looks identical to this brick here, which looks identical to this brick here, so on and so forth. So this little piece that we're moving around and saying, hey, this is my brick, right? Fourfold rotational symmetry, translational symmetry. Whatever the smallest repeating unit is, which in this case is a square, the smallest repeating unit is called a unit cell. So if I were going to build a wall out of little boxes like this, right, I would call this my unit cell, and I would build up thousands of these. Boom, 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 just like a bricklayer laying his bricks. And I'd have rotational symmetry and also translational symmetry. So there's different ways to build a wall, right? You can have square bricks. You can have rectangular bricks. Rectangular bricks, you can't rotate fourfold, right? Because if you do it 90 degrees, now you're along in this direction instead of this direction. So for a rectangle, you actually have to flip it, rotate it 180. So it only has twofold rotational symmetry. Now, we'll get into that maybe a little bit more in depth, because I do want to talk about, one of these days, talk about quasi-crystals. Very briefly, quasi-crystal is a well-ordered solid with atoms, forms a lattice, but, and here's the big but, it breaks one of the laws, or one of the rules of definitions of a crystal, as it doesn't have long translational symmetry, and it breaks some of the rotational symmetry rules too. So it's actually pretty cool. One of the real world applications for quasi-crystals is they're really low friction, and that's one of the things that I was studying in grad school. The correlation between it not having this symmetry, meaning it's not periodically repeating itself, and how that relates to friction. But because they're so low in friction, they've actually used them in some really fancy schmancy expensive frying pans to keep your food from sticking. They've also been used in like electrosurgical bleeds to keep icky blood and guts from sticking to the blade, and probably a couple other places, but they're not too common. It's more just a wow factor and a cool thing to say you have. But, you know, whatever. So I'm starting to get a list together, things to talk about. And too much science is like wah, wah, wah. So we gotta have some fun stuff interspersed with our science, right? So I think next time what we're gonna do is talk about quartz. It's one of the most common crystals out there. It's great for a bunch of things. It comes in many, many different varieties, right? We have clear quartz, smoky quartz, rose quartz. And what I'd like to talk about is what are the atoms that make up quartz? What does it look like on the atomic scale, right? What does its unit cell look like? That's that little repeating pattern. If you could take a atomic microscope and look at the atoms inside of a quartz, what are they going to look like? How are they going to repeat? What are the atoms made out of, right? And then, how do we get all of these beautiful, wonderful variations? So, that'll be a lot of fun. But, for now, back to the task at hand. So, this is my grounding crystal incense, or potpourri. And it's almost finished. After this, I place it into some tins, and then I ship it along with my grounding essential oil. So for the big containers, they are 8 ounce containers. I'll show you what the tins look like here. Nice lids to them. And I fill this up with the potpourri, and then I ship the essential oils in a separate little 5 milliliter bottle, because essential oils are strong, right? So you really only need to put 5 or 6 drops or so, and however long it lasts depends on how long you keep it open. Do you just leave it in the tin? You scatter it on a plate? That's my favorite way to do it. I have a little dish on my desk at work where I scatter it, and then every, 3-4 days I go over, add a couple of drops. So by keeping the essential oils separate in these big containers, it lasts quite a bit longer. And then you can also use the essential oils for other things. You can put them in a diffuser, or whatever you want to use them for. I have been starting to sell some smaller containers. They are 2 ounce containers. I'll grab one and show you. This one in particular is Himalayan cedar and blood orange. It smells amazing. It was in the frequency box for June. And in these containers, since they're so small, I do go ahead and apply the essential oils. But they last quite a while, and there's so many natural ingredients here. Like with the grounding, we have cedar tips, we have frankincense, and a bunch of lavender that, if you just go in there and kind of mess it up a little, all of these natural ingredients will start to break apart and release their fragrances and oils even on their own. And the essential oils are really just an enhancement of what's already there. So they do last for quite some time. But anyway, I guess that's about all I have to tell you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk a little bit more about crystals and hopefully next time delve into some really cool quartz. So I will see you guys later. Have a wonderful time, and